JavaScript. Here we are in day number 2, and in this lesson we're going to learn about functions. So we will answer the question, what is a function? However, before we get to that, let's first talk about where we are going to type our code in this lesson. So in our previous lesson, we learned how to open up the web browser's console, right? So remember, you can right-click on a web page, choose Inspect, and that opens up your developer tools, and then you just look for the tab or button that's named Console. Okay, and remember, in the previous lesson, we learned how to type down here, 2 plus 2, press Enter, we see 4. Now, the console is great for experimenting and typing out these single lines of code and then pressing Enter, but in the real world, you're going to want to write multiple lines of code at once. Meaning when you push Enter, you don't want the computer to execute or run your code right away. So almost like a word processing document with multiple sentences and paragraphs, we want to be able to write out multiple lines of JavaScript code and then have the computer run everything that we just typed. Now, the easiest way to get started practicing this is actually not the console, but instead a website named CodePen. And right now I want you to follow along with me. So you can either Google for CodePen, or you can just visit the address, which is codepen.io. So right now, this very minute, I want you to pause this lesson if you need to, while you go open CodePen in a new tab so you can follow along. In my opinion, CodePen is the easiest way to get started actually writing code. It's free to use, and if you do not want to, you don't even have to create or sign up for an account. You can literally just come to this website and click the Create button that should be somewhere towards the top right. And then from this menu that appears, choose the New Pen option. So Create New Pen. Okay, so what's going on now? What is this screen? Well, each pen that we create is like an empty canvas, or a playground, or playpen, or an experiment where we can code. So we see that there are 3 columns. The first is HTML, and then CSS, and then JS or JavaScript. Now this is a course that is focused on JavaScript, so we are not going to worry too much about these first 2 columns. But the big picture idea is that these are the 3 languages that web pages are created with. And how CodePen works is that as you type in a column, let me shrink this so you can actually see. As you type in a column, so in the HTML column, if I say, hello there, as soon as I stop typing for a second, a preview is shown to me down here of what my code creates. Perfect, except this is not a course on HTML. We want to learn about JavaScript. So just to make it really easy to focus on JavaScript for right now, why don't we hide the HTML and CSS columns? So to do that, all I did was drag on the border, right, this vertical line right between CSS and JavaScript, hover over that, and then click and drag to the left. So that way, the JavaScript column takes up most of our screen, right? Because that's the language that we want to practice. Cool. Now you do not need to do that. It just gives you more room as we're going to be typing in this column. So we now have a perfect environment to start practicing. Because in this JavaScript column, we can now type out multiple lines and just keep pressing Enter. And each time we type a bit of new code, the computer is going to execute everything that we wrote all at once together, just like an actual real-world computer program. Okay, now having said all of that, let's get back to the actual goal of this particular lesson, right? And that is the topic of functions. So what in the world is a function? Well, I like to think of functions as action words. So if we were comparing JavaScript to a language like English or Spanish, a function would be a verb. So for example, if our pet dog was a computer that spoke JavaScript, we could say run, or jump, or sit. So you simply type out the name of the action or the name of the function, and then you include a pair of parentheses. However, let's be realistic. Our web browser is not a dog, so it can't run, jump, or sit. But it can do web browser-ish things. So for example, let's delete these 3 lines of code, and we can create an annoying pop-up by calling the browser's alert function. So alert and then parentheses, and we can see this pop-up appears. So this is how you can alert the visitor of the site with a message, right? So if you really want to get their attention, you can include a custom message right about here. So let's go ahead and click the button to dismiss the alert pop-up. And within the parentheses for this alert, we can include quotes and then say, hey. And here we can see in the new pop-up, there is our custom message. Cool. Let's go ahead and close or dismiss this pop-up. So the idea is that within the parentheses, you can pass along a bit of data to the function, and it's up to the function as to how it uses that data. So back to the dog example, right? If our dog spoke JavaScript, we could say jump, and maybe first we want to tell the dog to jump high, but then we could also tell the dog to jump again, and maybe this time jump low. So to review, you can call a function simply by including the word and then parentheses, and then inside the parentheses, we can pass along a bit of data. The technical name for a piece of data that we pass along is an argument. So altogether, we are calling or executing the browser's alert function, and we are passing it an argument of hey. Okay, so the browser has these different action words or functions like alert that we can call, but we are not limited to only those functions. Because just like you can teach a dog a new trick, we can also teach our JavaScript environment new tricks by creating our own brand new functions. So for example, let's get rid of this line, and if I type out greet and then parentheses, the web browser does not know what this means. The browser does not have a function named greet. So when I say greet and then parentheses, this would be like telling a dog to bake a cake. It's not going to know what you mean, and it's just going to look at you funny. However, as a programmer, we can create our own brand new function named greet, and we simply explain what that action or function should do, and then it will be added to the browser's vocabulary, and we can use or call it just like we would alert or any of the built-in functions. So the question becomes, how do we create a function? Right? We've learned how to call or execute or run a function. Right? This is how you issue a command. You simply type the name of the function and then parentheses. But how do you actually create the recipe or the instructions or the logic for the function? Well, let me show you. So let's start fresh, and we begin by typing the word function, and then a space, and then we get to make up whatever name we want for our new function. The name does not matter. You could call it pizza or unicorn. But in this case, I'm going to name it greet. Then we include a pair of parentheses, and then after the parentheses, we include a pair of curly brackets. If you're not familiar with these characters, you can create them by holding the Shift key and then pressing the key directly to the right of the P key. Okay, and now you don't have to do this, but in between the two curly brackets, I like to push Enter or Return and drop down to a new line like this, just for visual clarity. Okay, but in between the curly brackets, where my cursor is blinking right now, this is what is referred to as the body of the function. And this is where we are free to do just about anything. So this is where we explain what the function should actually do. So just as a quick test, let's set things up so that when you call or run the greet function, an alert pop-up should appear that says, hello, my name is, and then whatever your name is. So inside the curly brackets, let's call the alert function and say, hello, my name is, and then you could put your name instead of my name. All right, and now you might be wondering why an alert pop-up message is not appearing right away. And it's because all we've done here is describe the function or define the function, right? So this is the recipe for our new greet action. And now if we want it to actually happen, if we want to tell the browser to actually perform the greet function, maybe down here we could just say greet and then parentheses, right? That's how you call a function. And there we can see the pop-up appears, hello, my name is Brad. And if we called the function again, so we call it again, greet a second time, it should appear twice. So here it is once, I click OK, there it is a second time, perfect. So we just taught the browser a new trick, a new action, or we should say, a new function. Now before we move on, let's improve our function, because it would be nice if it was flexible. Let me explain what I mean by that. So follow along with me. Let's delete these two function calls for greet. And remember when I used the example that a dog can jump, but you could also tell it to jump high or to jump low. And we learned that the data you pass within the parentheses is referred to as an argument, right? And it's up to the function to perhaps use that data in some way. Well, wouldn't it be cool if our greet function was flexible and when you called it, you could pass in a name instead of hard coding the name right here? So for example, wouldn't it be neat if we could say greet and pass it a value of John, and then it would say, hello, my name is John. And then you could call it again and say greet with a value of Jane, right? And then it would say, hello, my name is Jane. So let me show you how we can set that up. I'm going to go ahead and delete these two function calls so CodePen doesn't drive me insane and keep showing those pop-ups after every keystroke. Okay, so back to the task at hand. How can we make this function flexible? Well, it starts with these parentheses right after the name of our function. Within these parentheses, let's type the letter X. I'm just making that up because it's easy to type, but you could also say the name or pizza or unicorn or anything. So by including this here, we have created a parameter named X. And we can use this parameter within the body of the function. Let me show you what that means. So down here, where we would actually run or call the function, I'm going to place a / right in front of it to comment it out. I'm only doing this so CodePen doesn't try to show the pop-up after every couple of keystrokes. But the idea is within the parentheses for our function when we call it, if we include quotes and a name, so greet John, this data that we're passing along, John, we want to be able to access that within our function, within the body of our function. So by including X here as a parameter, X is going to equal the value of whatever gets passed in. So in this case, it would be John. So now within the body of our function, we can use that. So type this out with me. Let's get rid of your name here. So just have, hello, my name is space, and then the quote. And then let's say plus X. And then let's also add on quotes and a closing period to close out the sentence. So now down here, if we remove the two forward slashes, the browser or CodePen will know to actually run or execute it again. And here we see, hello, my name is John. And again, we don't need to use X as the parameter. So up in our function definition, within these parentheses, we could say the name. And then within the body of our function, we would just say instead of X, the name. And it works just the same. Okay, so to review, down here we are calling our greet function. We are passing it an argument of John. And then within our function definition, we've included a matching parameter named the name. That's going to temporarily store that value, and then we can use it however we want. So down here we could call the greet function again and say greet and pass it a value of Jane. So when our code runs, we see the first one for John, click OK, there's the one for Jane. Perfect. Now before we move on, I want to show you that you can pass along multiple arguments when you call a function. Let me show you what I mean. But first, let's comment out these two lines with // just so CodePen doesn't drive us insane with the alerts each time we modify the function. Okay, and let's assume that we want to change our greet function to now include the person's favorite color. So hello, my name is blank, and then let's say plus, pair of quotes, space, and my favorite color is space, and then let's plus fave color, and then add in the quotes for the closing period. Okay, and then how would we use this? Well, down in the function calls, when we say greet and give it a value of John, after the quotes, we can just say comma and pass along a second argument. So let's say John's favorite color is blue, and then with Jane, after her quotes, comma, and let's say her favorite color is green. Now, if we're including two arguments when we call the function, we want to be sure that we include two parameters up in the function definition. So the first thing that gets passed in is the name, and then up here we could say comma fave color, right? Because that's the name that I chose right here. So as soon as I remove these forward slashes to uncomment out our code, we see hello, my name is John, my favorite color is blue, and hello, my name is Jane, and my favorite color is green. Perfect. Now practice makes perfect, so before we bring this lesson to a close, I want to write one more function with you. So first I'm going to comment out these two lines so CodePen doesn't keep showing me those pop-ups. Okay, and right below that down here, let's create a function named triple me, or you could do double me or quadruple me, but let's set up a function so that when you pass it a number, maybe it triples that number. So imagine we could say triple me, and then as the argument, just give it a number of 5, and we would expect this function to return a value of 15. So let's walk through this. So first we create the function definition, or the recipe for the function. So let's say function space and then the name. You can make one up. I'm calling it triple me, and then parentheses, and then after the parentheses, curly brackets. Okay, now within the parentheses right after triple me, let's include x as a parameter, and now we can use that within the body of the function. Now I do want to let you know that within the body of our function, we do not need to call a browser function like alert. Instead, actually, a function in its purest form simply returns a value. So let's say return, and then what do we want to return? Well, the function is named triple me, so why don't we just say 3 and then asterisk for multiplication, and then whatever number is getting passed in through the argument and parameter, right? In this case, I chose x. Okay, and then let's test this function out. So down here, let's create a variable that stores a number. So let's say let my favorite number equal, and then let's use our function. Let's say triple me, right? We're calling or executing the function, and let's pass it a value of 12. Okay, and then finally, we want to test things to make sure that it's actually working. So finally, let's just alert out the value of my favorite number, just so we can see it with our own two eyes. So finally, we can say alert my favorite number. Perfect, and there we see 36, right? If you triple 12, you get 36. I know I moved a lot faster for this second example of triple me, but I just wanted to give you something to experiment with, and if you need to rewatch this part a couple of times, that's okay. If everything in this lesson was not crystal clear and you're still a bit confused, that's okay. All you really need to have remembered from this lesson is that there are functions. You can create a function by saying function jump. This creates the recipe or the definition for that function, and then you are free to run or call that function wherever you want, however many times you want, and then of course we learned that you can pass it data inside the parentheses. If this concept is even a little bit familiar to you, if it's making even just a little bit of sense, then you're doing great. You're right on track and you're ready to move on to the next lesson. So we just covered functions. Up next, objects. So what in the world is an object? Let's keep our momentum rolling, let's answer that question, and I will see you in the next lesson. The 10 Days of JavaScript is the first chapter for my upcoming premium course, Full Stack JavaScript from Scratch. I'm making these first 10 or 11 videos freely available on YouTube, and so for the next 10 days, I'm going to upload one new video each day. So stay tuned, or if you're watching this in the future, all the lessons are up, so feel free to binge watch. The full premium course is not available just yet, but if you subscribe to this channel, you'll be notified as soon as it's out. Or if you're watching this video in the future, it's already available. Enjoy!